Hello, welcome to this episode of Voice Notes from Samio. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about things we forgot are normal. Now, these are the things that I believe most, if not everybody, has to deal with in their lives, but we don't really share enough. And I think a big part of it is social media, because a lot of it, as we know, is a highlight reel. And I will admit myself, I am guilty of some of these things, but I believe whether you're a content creator or influencer or not, we're all kind of a part of the problem here, because most of us do use social media as a highlight reel, which would be fine. But I think the problem then lies when we're maybe not getting out enough or interacting enough with other people about the realities of our life. And then we start to think that the things we see online are normal. Now, I'm a big believer of the whole idea of if you don't like something in your life, change it. But I think there are many things in your life that you might not be feeling happy with and you're not sure why. And it might actually just be because you forgot they're actually normal. Now, I'm excited for this episode because I've been sick for the week. I've not left the house. This is the first time I've done my hair and makeup, and I am ready to chat your ear off. So I hope you're ready. I've got my list. I've got my tea. Let's go. Now, these are some things I've had to remind myself this week in particular, because I am not a good sick person, okay? I'm very impatient. I find it hard to rest. And when I can't do the things I want to do, I get very frustrated with myself. But this is a good time to sit and reflect and remind myself that actually some of this stuff is normal. Number one is not having a tidy house 24/7. And this is a big one. And I know it's a big one for so many people, because I, for one, for so long had this standard or this ideal in my head. And I think I was basically living to the ideal of a showroom, which was not really feasible. And honestly, to maintain the standard that I wanted my house to be at, you kind of needed no one to live there. Either that or I needed a full-time housekeeper, which unfortunately, at this time, I do not have. But it was actually putting me in a state of stress, because anything out of place was really aggravating me. And I felt like I was constantly trying to keep on top of stuff to a standard, which I honestly couldn't. And I'm not talking about cleanliness here, because I think it is important to be clean, and I'd say I'm a pretty cleanly person, but just in general, just mess, things not being put back immediately and things like that. And some people are great at this. And I think social media would lead us to believe that the way to be is to have everything organized, have a place for everything, put everything away straight after using it. And you'll know, if you live in life as a human in this world, as much as we like to try and keep up with things, it's not always feasible. So next time you're seeing that perfectly glossy, tidy home on your social media, just remember that a lot of work has either gone into that, or the reality is that just around the corner, there's probably a pile of mess that you don't see. And I want to add a side note into this, taking it into real life. But I actually realized this was even impacting myself with some of my friends and vice versa, because in the circumstances where we'd go around to each other's houses, we would usually clean and tidy up. And so we were seeing each other's houses when it was in its best state, and then not seeing each other's houses messy. And this only dawned on me when I was having a conversation with a friend, and I was telling her how much I struggle to keep on top of mess. And she kind of looked at me puzzled, and she was like, "Your home's always really tidy whenever I come round." And I was like, "Yeah, that's because I've cleaned and tidied like an absolute mad woman before you arrived to make everything look perfect." And so that really got me thinking. But I've let myself be a little bit more, shall we say, vulnerable when it comes to my mess, and not trying to make my home this perfectly spotless place. And something that I've actually found is you can even make people feel more comfortable when everything's not perfect, because it's kind of it's homely, it's lived in. And even the other day, actually, I was sat on the sofa speaking to a friend, and I just did a little video vlog that I sent her of the mess in the house, because at the time my husband was building this cabinet unit, and downstairs was actually a workshop for a good 3 months. Yeah, that was not fun. So I sent her a video to show her the mess, and then she sent me a video of her house in her current state. And it was actually really freeing. Try it sometime with a friend and you'll realize everyone's a little bit messy every now and again. Number two is not being productive 24/7. This one is important because I think sometimes we can guilt ourselves for either resting or being quote unquote lazy, or even just taking breaks. But actually all those things are really necessary and important for our health and for the actual productivity were hoping to achieve. And I think, again, when we see what people are doing online, it looks like people are so organized, like they have it all together. And honestly, resting is so important and feeling lazy is so important. I realized when I was ill this week that the first few days I was struggling to rest, and I didn't realize this until I was getting frustrated because I was like, why am I not feeling any better? And my husband even said to me, he was like, it's because you're not resting. And I was like, well, I'm not really doing anything. But even mentally, I was thinking about work. I was like, okay, well, I can't shoot this right now because I'm not feeling well. So let me plan, let me do this. And I was still in that productivity mode when the reality is, to get better, I needed to just actually switch off. So it wasn't until day 3 that I just fully surrendered to the fact that I was ill, and I put on Love is Blind and I fully vegetated on the sofa. And that's when I actually started to feel better. So sometimes we really need that rest and we need to not guilt ourselves for it. Number 3 is not looking put together all of the time. And I have got a smile on my face for this one, because was I wearing a dressing gown 5 minutes before filming this video? And did I throw on this blazer at the very last minute? Yes, I did. And am I wearing sweatpants? Yes, I am. So obviously I like to present myself in my videos how I like to go out into the world, because your girl likes to dress up. But the reality for me and most people is that we don't look put together 24/7. In fact, this past week alone, I've been looking dusty, crusty, musty. And is it okay? Absolutely. And believe me, most people, even the most glam people that you see on social media, believe me, they do not look like that all of the time. It is so normal to have those days where your hair isn't on point, your outfit isn't on point, you're not looking all done up and put together, or whatever your usual presentation is in the world. Because believe me, even the smartest, most glamorous people you see have their down days. Number 4 is not looking good when working out. Now, I love me some gym content because I'm a gym girly and I like to run. So I like seeing this content. I'll be saving the little workouts, little calisthenics workouts on TikTok. I'm like, yeah, show me how to do a L-sit. Can I do one yet? No. Will I do one eventually? Hell yeah. But what you'll notice when you're looking at this gym content, the girlies especially will be looking aesthetic. I don't mind this. I like the aesthetics. They'll be in a cute gym with a cute outfit. But the reality is, when I'm working out, most of the time I'm looking like a hot mess, a hot, sweaty mess. And this is completely normal. In fact, my gym isn't even aesthetic. I would like a luxury gym. If they could build one next door to my house, that would be great. Thank you. But for the time being, I'm in a dusty, crusty gym, and I'm most of the time wearing just like whatever is comfortable for the gym. My motto is, I don't go to the gym to be glam. I go to the gym to get glam. And what I mean by that is that when I'm going to the gym, I'm going there to work out so that I can feel as good and fabulous as possible, so that when I'm putting on my outfits, I can feel my glamorous, most fabulous Samio self. But I don't need to be that during the workout. So as cheesy as that sounds, it's true. There's quite a few looks related points here that are all kind of related. So I'll whiz through these next ones. But number 5 is looking average most of the time. And I guess this is kind of like the not looking put together one, but this is in the sense of just looking in the mirror, looking like yourself 90% of the time. And I'm talking about no filters, no perfect lighting, just real life. Because you have to understand that when you're looking at stuff on social media, I mean, especially TikTok, the amount of people I see with beauty filters on that are so realistic looking, it's scary. I mean, I'm someone who's worked with camera, videography, all that stuff for years now. And even I was fooled for a while. Like, I'd be like, their makeup looks so perfect. It's only when I started to realize that a lot of people actually have a filter on. And especially when it comes to beauty content, it is crazy. I mean, I personally just don't agree with that, because I'm like, especially when you're showing foundation and stuff like that, you should be able to see the skin if you're promoting a product. But that's a whole other kettle of fish. The beauty filters and the way they're used would lead you to believe that everybody has the most perfect, flawless skin, effortless makeup every day, all the time. And now I get it. Having access to those filters is allowing some people to put themselves out there online where they may have otherwise felt a little less confident, and they might be talking about really important topics. And so if by having that filter, it gives them that boost of confidence to go and speak about something that's quite important to share with the world, then great. But then I think the problem then lies, especially when I talked about the beauty related content, is when people are thinking that that is actually someone's real skin and everything is looking so flawless, and it becomes kind of like the standard of what we're seeing, especially because people are spending more time looking at their screens than they are even going outside. So then I think it's easy to start to forget what real skin and faces actually look like. And really, if most people took off those filters, they're usually using it because they've not had time to get ready and they're just like, oh, rather than do my makeup, I'll put a filter on. And so the funny thing is, behind that filter, most people are just their real life self. They're probably not even glammed up. And so it's important that when we're then looking at ourselves in the mirror, to realize that what we're seeing is normal and it's okay, because most of the people that when we're watching them online are just the same as well. Like they have flaws, imperfections, and even if they do have really good skin, it's probably not as airbrushed as some of these filters make it look. And even in this scenario, if you're watching this, I have a lighting setup which is very flattering. Obviously, I've got my makeup done, and lighting alone can be very powerful because very different lighting can give a very different look. We've all seen those images of celebrities online, right, where they've drawn out every perfection in their face and there's like dark shadows under their eyes. And half of the time it's actually just because of bad lighting. Like they don't actually look that bad, just in the same way that they probably don't look as flawless as they do with the amazing lighting setups that you see on photo shoots or on the red carpet. And actually, most of the time, there's an in-between that's more normal and realistic. So just remember that it's normal to look normal most of the time. I said I was going to whiz through these appearance ones, but clearly I have things to say on these beauty points. But this next one is aging and changing appearance. This is a big one and it's so normal, but we forgot it's normal because it seems that the trend, well, I say trend, this has been probably a thing for ever since I can remember. It seems to be so big in our society to try and defy aging. Now, I'm not here to bash anyone because I would not say I am immune to this. It's easy for me as still a young woman to say, oh, we should all embrace our age and not worry about wrinkles or grey hair, when I'm yet to get to the age where I'm affected by wrinkles and grey hair. And I know in society, especially for women, it is so hard to age. And I know for a lot of women, they vocalize feeling that they start to become invisible. And so I am not discrediting any of that. But what I will say is that this whole anti-aging rhetoric comes along at such a young age that people who, they have like baby skin, let's be real, they're probably closer to being born than they are dying, and yet they're already obsessing over aging and changing appearance. And I think it's really important to remind ourselves that it is normal, so that whether you decide to take interventions or not, you at least have some sort of concept of the reality that aging and changing appearance is normal. And even just in a sense of how your appearance changes full stop, we go through puberty, we grow, and all of that is completely normal. So you kind of need to not hold yourself to the standard of how you looked when you were maybe 21 or whatever. And it's something that everybody goes through and it's inevitable. So if you're worrying about these things, you are not alone. And again, it goes back to that flawless filter thing and everybody looking perfect online. So if you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, I'm changing, I know it doesn't make it any easier and it can be really scary, especially when there's so many pressures in society. But just remember, you're definitely not alone. Number 7 is not having the perfect body. And the reason this is normal is because the perfect body doesn't exist. And I know that in society, being slim is put on a pedestal. And I can completely appreciate how in our society, it's easier for slimmer people to be accepted. But this idea of perfect is ultimately a moving goalpost, because what's perfect to one person won't be to another. And often people chasing this perfection, when they get to it, the goalpost often moves again. And it's completely normal to have things like cellulite, stretch marks, wobbly bits. Bodies are so diverse and unique, and no two bodies are the same. So please don't compare yourself to what you see on social media, because like I say, perfect doesn't exist. And number 8 is having big celebrations for every occasion. I have things to say, okay? I don't know if it's the pandemic or what, but I feel like celebrations are kind of, dare I say it, getting out of hand. I'm going to sound so miserable. I think it is probably since the pandemic. You know, people want to celebrate more. People were indoors for so long. And it's like, we just want to have fun. We just want to celebrate every occasion. But I also do think a big part of it, like the other side of it, is social media. People realize that having lavish celebrations for things and then putting them online do get a lot of views a lot of times. And so I'm not saying all the time, but I think some of the time it can be quite performative. And then the celebrations become less about the celebration and more about the performance of the celebration. That could be a whole topic in itself. And I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade. If you want to have a big, lavish, fabulous party for whatever it is, be it your hamster's birthday or your anniversary, you do you. And I'm not talking about your weddings and the likes of that. If you want to go crazy and have the biggest celebration of your life, I'm all for it. In fact, send me an invite because I love a good wedding. I've not been to one in a while and I want to turn up. But from what we see online, it's easy to think that everybody has the biggest celebrations for every occasion, but actually they don't, and it's normal to not do. And if you want those things, go for it. But if you don't, it's actually okay because it's completely normal. And I was having this conversation actually with a friend how hen do's and stag do's or bachelor and bachelorette parties have got bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. And, you know, back in the day, it'd be just like a night out before the wedding. And now it's massive trips abroad. And for some people, if they have multiple friends getting married in 1 year, it can become a huge expense. And I just think it's really interesting. And don't get me wrong, I am the first person who wants to turn up to a party and a celebration. I will bring that energy. But it does make me wonder as the bar constantly rises for these different celebrations and as things get bigger and bigger and the costs and overhead get bigger and guest participation, where's the limit? So yeah, if you want to keep things low key, that is completely fine. And it is also normal. Number 9 is having bad days. And it does not matter who you are, what your life situation is. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're having more bad days than good days, and that's when I would say it's important to seek help from a medical professional, because obviously that's when it starts to be a problem. Having bad days is completely normal. I mean, especially if you had periods, Lord, it's like me with my live chats. I love sharing things that I've overcome or I'm overcoming and life lessons I've learned along the way. But just because I've battled one beast. I don't know why I always say battled the beast, but we're just going to go with it. Just because I've battled one beast doesn't mean I'm not battling another one over here. Do you know what I'm saying? And that is normal for everybody. So it's great when you're following uplifting, positive people online and, you know, people are showing their routines and, you know, I'm a fitness girly and I got my fitness routines and stuff like that. That same person will still be crying on a random Wednesday because shit ain't going right. We all have our own bad days and our own problems of different varying severities. So just keep that in mind that nobody's life is perfect. So if you feel like yours isn't, that is completely normal. Number 10 is mental health battles don't always look dramatic. Not sure on the word in there, but I think you know what I'm saying. Sometimes they're just quiet battles. And I guess this is similar to the last point of having bad days. But I think when it comes to mental health, there's a lot of mental health content online. Questionable of how much of it is good and how much of it is bad. I think it's definitely good that as a society, we're talking about things a lot more. Probably not great that there's a lot of self-diagnosis going on and we're kind of identifying with medical conditions a lot more than I've ever known as a society. However, I think it's important to acknowledge our own struggles when we're going through them, but also realize that sometimes they don't have to be deemed as this big, huge thing to be deemed as a struggle. And you don't necessarily have to be labeled with a particular medical condition to be able to seek help or even just have therapy. I'm saying that it's important to acknowledge your mental health struggles when they arise and realize that you can have small battles going on and they don't always look dramatic. Because I think sometimes it's really easy to dismiss ourselves and our own emotions when we're like, oh, I'm fine because it's not that bad. I'm not as bad as that person, or I don't have this condition. It's just like with your physical health. Just because you don't have a terminal illness doesn't mean you shouldn't seek help for that ailment. There are varying degrees of health, just as there are varying degrees as your mental health. And sometimes it can be something just as simple as speaking to a friend about it or even finding mindfulness practices that work for you. But it's just acknowledging it that not everything has to be a huge thing, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that it's not worth addressing or that you shouldn't acknowledge it for yourself. And ultimately, you don't know what anyone's going through either. Not every mental health struggle is, like I say, dramatic. And just because you can't see what someone's going through doesn't mean it's not there. Number 11 is being bored. This is normal. Sometimes life is boring. Life isn't always an adventure and it isn't always fun. Now, I am someone who seeks a lot of this, and I have had to get comfortable with the mundane, shall we say, because I realize it is actually good for me, because I'm the type of person that I can easily seek adventure at every possibility. But really, it's not ideal for everyday life and kind of getting to the places and doing the things that I actually want to do long term. And so sometimes I do have to rein it in a little bit, but it is really normal to have moments of boredom, and it is really normal to partake in the mundane. We've escaped boredom so much through our phones in particular, because we're constantly they're in our hand all the time, right? We're able to just access entertainment nonstop. But boredom is such a good thing because it leads to creativity and ideas, and actually can lead to so much joy from figuring new things out and discovering new things. And on top of that, I think even just looking online, it's easy to think that everybody is living their best life, living an adventure, going on holiday all the time, just having the most fun. And it's not the case at all. Everybody has moments of mundane. And I believe that whatever situation you're in, because ultimately, even if you were having excitement, fun, and adventure all the time, it would soon not become that, because it would become your new normal. So even if someone looks like they're living their best life, believe me, just like you, they have moments of boredom and they have moments of mundane. Number 12, you don't have to monetize your hobbies. This is a note to self that sometimes you can just do things for fun. And I think it's particularly hard if you're a creative, and especially if you're on social media, it's easy to pick up a new hobby and be like, oh, I've actually got good at this. Oh, I know, side business. No, we don't need to do that. Sometimes we need to do things for fun. And I feel like, especially in this day and age, the internet would lead us to believe that we need 5 different side hustles, and our hobbies can be the gateway to that. And yes, for some people, it works out amazingly. I am someone who started as a blog as a hobby, which eventually led to social media and it becoming my full-time job. But it doesn't mean that every single hobby that I partake in thereon after must become another stream of income. And I also think this is important because we also need to try things and play and not be trying to perfect them for outside consumption. And I've said it once and I'll say it again, I really do believe in people making money out of their art if you're an artist or a creative. But also, on the other side of that, if you don't want to and you want to do something for fun, that is okay as well. Not everything you do has to lead to a monetary outcome. Number 13, it is normal to not always feel confident. And you might be thinking, I am not confident at all. And if that's you, we will be diving into that in a future episode. But for the time being, stick with me. But for the most part, I would say most of us have certain areas of our life we feel confident in. And some of us feel, a bit confident in all areas most of the time, but it's normal for that to waver. Going back to the bad days thing, we all have bad days, we all have down days, we all have days where for whatever reason, the confidence is not hitting, and that is completely normal. And again, I think social media would lead you to believe, with everybody putting themselves out there, sharing their life story and sharing their art and sharing their businesses, that we are just surrounded by confident people left, right and center. But oftentimes there are so many people who are faking it until they're making it. And even the ones who do have confidence have days where they're not confident, or have areas where they're not confident. And confidence is something that you can build on, and it is something that you can work on if you do struggle with it. So don't be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be confident because it's normal to not be confident and I'm going to feel like this forever. No. You can work on your confidence and you can build on that. All I'm saying is that it is normal to have days where you don't feel all confident, you don't have it all together. And so sometimes you might be looking at someone and think, wow, how are they so confident? And they might not be. A perfect example, I saw a video the other day, and I think it was Wisdom K. They do the coolest styling videos. And if you know who I'm talking about, you would not believe that they aren't completely confident. They did a video talking about confidence and saying, people always think I'm confident, but I'm not. And it's so surprising, because if you've seen Wisdom's videos, you would think that this person is the most confident person. But they were talking about looks and how, Wisdom was like, I don't really rate myself. And it's just so interesting.
I have insecurities, right? Like if that guy that's like, hey, excuse me, what makes you so confident, try to stop me in the middle of the road, you would hear nothing but just static for 20 minutes, because I wouldn't have shit to say, because I'm not confident. And I can understand looking at the stuff that I produce, outside of, not on this account, but on my other social medias, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. I can understand it I probably come across this guy who seems very confident. You'd probably be like, oh, he's wearing this and he's wearing that and he's wearing all these different looks. Like, this guy must be a confident guy. I'm confident in my ability to style certain things, but that's a different conversation. I'm talking about how I look.
And that is someone who's achieved massive success as a styling genius creative, shall we say. So not everybody who looks confident is. And so if you're not feeling all that confident, it is completely normal. Number 14, it's normal having different opinions. This one actually drives me mad, especially on the internet, especially on TikTok. Maybe I should just get off TikTok. I do love watching videos on there though. Not everything has to be an argument or a hot take. And this actually drives me mad. Like, don't get me wrong. I think there's always room for critique and, a difference in opinion or showing a different angle. But I feel like it's got to the point where you could say, I like blue, and someone will argue with you until the cows come home of why red is better. And it's just like, oh. And then you know what? It's fine, because you could say, well, we're allowed a different opinion. And that would be fine. But I feel like it's got to the point where people don't even allow people to have an opinion different from their own, because then that seemed as bad or wrong. And sometimes it might be, but other times it might just be because someone's had a very different life experience to yours and they see the world in a very different way. And I think it's got to this point where a lot of people online seem to be looking for people to have exactly the same opinions as them. But in real life, that is not normal. I have friends from all different walks of life, and some things we don't have the same opinions on, and that's okay. Not every difference is malicious or harmful or hateful. And I think we forgot it's normal to actually live in harmony with people who maybe have slightly differing opinions than our own. And don't get me wrong, I'm always going to be against it if someone's like racist, bigoted, homophobic. But I think some of the stuff I see online gets a little bit pedantic. And like I say, I'll see someone argue that a square shouldn't be a square because circles are better, and I don't know. And I mean, sure, in our real lives, we are friends with people or we have family members that we still love and we still want in our lives that we don't agree with on everything 100%. And that's okay, because having difference in opinions on certain things is normal. And I think this leads perfectly onto number 15, because it is normal to make mistakes and learn from them. And again, we see this a lot online with cancel culture. How dare you make a mistake, because now you need to go in the bin. And don't get me wrong, again, some people do need to go in the bin, but some of the reasons that people get cancelled for is actually silly. And it's not really allowing people to make mistakes and learn and grow. And I think this goes the same for ourselves. We've all at some point had a conflict with a friend, right? Or a family member. Unless it's something absolutely abhorrent, we don't immediately cancel them for it. Usually there's some kind of, cooling off period, and then you have a discussion and hopefully you make up and move forward. And so it's important to remember that that's normal. And we need to remember that we're allowed to mess up and have failures along the way. Because I think another thing with social media, we can see people being really successful and doing amazing things. And sometimes you just come across someone and it looks like they've been an overnight success, but oftentimes you haven't seen their journey along the way and the failures and mistakes that they've had along the way to get to where they are. And so we need to remind ourselves of that mistakes and life lessons are absolutely normal. You cannot escape life without it. So you may as well just move forward in the direction that you want to go and learn as you go. Number 16, having ups and downs in relationships is normal. No couple is perfect 24/7, 7 days a week, however many days a month, because the months change, 365 days a year. Having ups and downs is normal. Now, when I say having ups and downs, I'm not saying like massively tumultuous where 1 minute you're breaking up and the next day you're together. There's probably a bit of a problem there if that's happening. But I'm just talking about the normal ups and downs of day-to-day life, especially when you're in a relationship for a long time. Relationships go through seasons, life happens, careers change, people have kids, people move house. There's so many external stresses that can affect your relationship and the ups and downs of it. And I'd say in this scenario, look at your relationship overall. Are you happy? Do you feel safe? Do you enjoy each other's company? Do you have a nice time? Because it's easy to look on social media and see people's relationships looking perfect and romantic and glamorous. And that might be so, but it is never like that 24/7. Just in the same way that it's normal for you as an individual to have bad days, it is normal that when two people combine together in a relationship with two different personalities, souls, beings, collectively will have their own ups and downs along the way. Life happens, and as long as you keep growing together and choosing each other, you're doing okay. Number 17 is real friendships take effort. And I need to read my notes here because I wrote a few things. And I wrote, friendships ebb and flow, and it's normal to not have a clique or a group of friends. So on that first point, real friendships take effort. And I wrote here, not just the aesthetic bestie moments on social media, because it's easy to see these bestie moments. And don't get me wrong, I actually love seeing some of these and they're quite fun. And I like when friends share them with me and I share them with friends. But really, friendships are a lot deeper than that. And I know there's been a loneliness epidemic going on for a long time, and a lot of people struggle to connect with people for numerous reasons. But I don't think dwelling too much on this aesthetic besties thing helps, because actually real friendships and lasting friendships, they really do take work. Ultimately, a friendship is a relationship. It might not be a romantic relationship, but it's still a relationship of two people coming together and continually deciding to choose each other over and over again to maintain that friendship. And this ties into the other point that I made, that friendships ebb and flow. And it's important to remember that just like you go through different seasons of your own life, so do your friends. And so it's important to give them grace, and hopefully they can do the same as you in return as you both navigate through those seasons, because things do change in life. Again, people move away, people get different jobs, people have different schedules than you might have had when you first became friends, especially if you've had friends from school. Obviously, it's a lot easier to maintain those friendships when you're really young and you've just got no responsibilities. Of course, I remember I used to sit on the phone to my friends every night for hours after having spent the whole day at school with them, which is just hilarious. And I used to do that every day and then be at each of us houses for sleepovers on the weekend, which is bonkers. But we had the time to do that and to maintain the friendships to that level. Obviously, as you grow older, you get different commitments. You might be in a relationship with a partner yourself. You might move. You might have children. All of these different factors. It's normal for things to ebb and flow. But ultimately, if you do want a friendship to work and you do want to maintain that, it is exactly that. It is work and it is effort. As much as we can romanticize these cute bestie moments, which are fun, and you can obviously have those within your friendship, the actual deep, meaningful relationships that you'll have and that you maintain really do require work. And I can go more into this topic in another episode because I have so much to say on friendships. But all of that to say that I think we need to remember that a friendship is a relationship and it does need maintenance as a romantic relationship would. Obviously different, but in its own way. And my last point on friendships, this is like 3 points in one, is that it's normal to not have a clique and like a group of friends. I think this has been sold to us, not just through social media, but just through media, television, film, since, well, probably even way before I was even born. The likes of Sex and the City, things like Friends. It's like this group of like tight-knit friends that do everything together. Again, kind of not feasible, because unless you all live on the same street or in the same neighborhood and you all have very specific lifestyles and you're all embarking on the same life path and you work the same hours, it's kind of unrealistic for the most part. And obviously people do have groups of friendships and they are able to maintain that. But don't feel bad about yourself if you don't. Having one friend is just as normal, or having a couple of friends, or even like I've got quite a few friends, but they're all separate. They're not a group of friends together. And so whatever your friendships look like and however they work for you, that is essentially normal, because there is a no one size fits all. But like I say, I have so much to say about friendships that if you want another episode where I speak specifically about friendships or any particular topic around that, do let me know. Also, if you were enjoying this podcast and you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave me a 5-star rating and review, as it helps more than you would know. Number 18 is it's normal to not have a perfect family. And what I mean by this is every family has struggles, no matter how perfect they look online. It's so easy to see someone's family unit, their parents, their siblings, their extended family, and see them all looking happy. I feel like especially around Christmas time and holidays and things like that, and people, are uploading their family pictures or content or whatever they're doing online. And especially, again, films and media have just drilled this into us of these perfect looking families. But it is so common for families to have issues, because going back to the thing of like us as individuals having bad days and going through issues, the more the family extends and the more people are in a family and the different personalities, it's kind of normal that at some point there's going to be a little bit of conflict there. And obviously people have this to varying degrees. Sometimes it's little bickers around the dinner table at holidays or at Christmas. In other cases, it's estrangement from family members. But just know that it is normal. And even those perfect families that all look like they get along with each other, believe me, there's probably some stuff behind the scenes that you would never know about. Number 19, this is a big one. It is normal to not have ticked all of society's boxes. I could go on and on about this point because I feel like the pressure, not only from social media, but just from society as a whole, is huge on this point. And I think it leads people to feeling deeply dissatisfied because they get into their heads that in order to be happy, they have to have ticked all these societal boxes. And often it's been drilled into us from such a young age that it has taken away some of our own autonomy in ways to even think seriously about how much we actually want all of these things. And now I am not judging this. If you want to tick every single box, and I'm talking about all these things like having a house, being married, having kids, all that stuff, that is completely fine. But also know that if you don't have these things, or you maybe don't want those things, again, it is completely normal. I myself am someone who is married and has a house, and I'm quite happy with that. But I know that my decision isn't necessarily right for someone else, and vice versa, because we're all individuals. And I think the more we normalize that there are very different ways to live, it gives us scope for what possibilities are out there for our own lives. And I think as well, the pressure that we can put on ourselves to achieve these certain milestones by a certain age is so huge. But realizing that it's okay and that it's normal if you haven't can be quite freeing. And I know it's hard if you are someone who does really want these things, but I think also just like seeking out people online in particular who maybe also haven't done these things or are choosing not to do these things, and seeing the way different people live can be really helpful, because it's not a one size fits all, and you can have such a full, fulfilling life, living a life that feels right for you, that doesn't necessarily look how society says it needs to look. And number 20, which is my last point, it is normal to not have it all figured out. And I think this pretty much sums up everything in the list, because nobody has it all figured out, as much as you might think they do, or as much as you might think that getting to a certain age or getting to a certain milestone will enable you to have it all figured out. Believe me, there's always something new to learn along the way. And it's also normal to go through periods of feeling lost, through different life changes, or even just sometimes you hit a point where you've been doing the same thing for a long time, and maybe what was working once is no longer working, and you can hit a bit of a crossroads and you're like, oh my gosh, what is happening next? And believe me, that is so normal. From discussions with friends and people that I know, it's so normal to go through periods of feeling lost, whatever situation you're in. And it's also so normal to not have it all figured out, because nobody does. All we can do is like keep learning and keep growing, and yeah, just have fun along the journey, basically. I actually have a video that I've been editing for the longest time. I will upload it one day, which is exactly about this. And so hopefully I'll link that below when I have finally uploaded it. That is my list, my 20 things. Remember, social media ultimately distorts reality. We can have fun on there, but it isn't real life. So as the kids say, don't forget to occasionally go out and touch grass, because it's important. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I have thoroughly enjoyed chatting your ear off. Definitely got a bit of a throat strain. I think I need to go and have a Lemsip and a lie down. But you know what? I'm feeling better already. I'm feeling slightly more revived. Hopefully it was a nice little reminder of the things that we forgot are normal, because we're all just real humans having this weird human experience, figuring things out as we go in these skin suits, and just, trying to just have a nice life, basically. So I hope it was helpful in some way. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this, and I will speak to you in the next one.